This is Miles, still broadcasting, still breathing. It's day 62 since the moon turned red, or maybe since I started counting. Time feels like water now. No edges, just drift. I'm transmitting from what used to be Denver. The bones of the city still stand, stubborn and hollow. Ash falls through the broken roofs like some gentle lie. Soft, almost beautiful, until it coats your throat like rust. It snowed last night. Not water, not ice. Something between memory and dust. The tower's antenna still works, though the signal fights with static more than usual. I cleaned the solar plates with vinegar from an old ration stash, and the battery's holding for now. If you're hearing this, if there's anyone left tuning in, I hope your rig's catching my voice in one clean line. The air smells like copper. The wind doesn't blow so much as hum. I've stopped calling it weather. It's just the sky adjusting to whatever we've done to it. Somewhere out there, past the crust of silence and old echoes, I hope you're safe, or at least safer than I am. Tonight the moon hangs low, swollen, crimson, watching like it remembers something we forgot. This is KM Signal Delta, rooftop frequency, 8.74 megahertz. Miles, signing in. I keep thinking about the last time the sky was blue. Not that chalky, sickly blue we sometimes get after windstorms. I mean blue. The kind you'd lay under, arms behind your head, pretending the clouds were animals and no one was dying. It was a Tuesday, I think. Jamie and I were on the roof of the science building at Boulder U. She brought iced tea in a bottle she'd repurposed from some ancient soda brand. She told me the jet stream was starting to collapse. Too much polar instability, too much heat shifting the upper layers. I laughed. Said something stupid like, well, we'll still have the stars? I didn't know then that stars need clear skies, and clear skies need balance. We haven't had either in a long time. Kansas went silent first, then Oklahoma. Reports say a wet bulb event swept in. Humid heat so thick your lungs stopped knowing how to cool you. People tried to shelter underground, but the air followed. It always does. I keep cycling through the channels, hoping someone out there forgot to die. But static is a loyal friend these days. At least it replies. We lived in a world that forgot its limits. Now the sky has forgotten us. If you still remember blue, write it on the wind. Jamie was a storm chaser once, before the world chased back. She had a voice like dry leaves and laughter, the kind of voice you trust before you know why. When the broadcasts were still centralized, she'd do weekly updates on atmospheric collapse, said things like tipping point and cascading failure, and made them sound like bedtime stories. Soft but sharp. The last time I spoke to her, she was in Amarillo. Said the soil was starting to bubble, methane pockets bursting under sunstroke pressure. Her breath caught halfway through the call, like she'd seen something. Then she whispered, Miles, it's happening faster than the models ever showed. The line died 10 seconds later. I kept her last message on a drive. Play it sometimes. It cuts through the static like a blade, her voice warped, but intact. If it turns red, it means the upper sky is thinning. If it stays red, it means the bleed is permanent. It stayed red. I wonder if she made it west, or north, or if she's part of the silence now. There's a lot of that going around. Sometimes I hear her voice in the static. I know it's not real, but it answers anyway. And on nights like this, that's enough. There's something pulsing in the Rockies tonight. Not wind, not storm, a rhythm. Too steady for coincidence. 4 beats. Pause. Then 3. I've logged it 5 times in the last hour. Could be atmospheric refraction, old signals bouncing off heat layers, or it could be someone, somewhere, saying I'm still here. The signal's faint, low frequency, maybe analog, but it's coming from high altitude, somewhere past Estes Park. Too far to walk, too dangerous to drive. Fuel's rare now. Roads, even rarer. I don't know why it unsettles me. Maybe because I've grown used to silence, used to knowing what's dead and what isn't. This feels undecided, like something waiting to be discovered, or something waiting to discover me. Could be a beacon, could be a trap, could be the last voice on earth with enough electricity to knock on another soul's door. I'm too tired to chase ghosts. But I logged it anyway. Frequency 44.3, low band time code 2114 MST, pattern 4-pause 3 note. Repeats every 23 seconds. If you're listening from that ridge, I heard you. This is Miles. Still breathing. Still listening. I walked east today. Took the bike for part of it, but the sand gums up the gears like dried blood. Had to push the rest. The turbines outside Cheyenne used to sing. Ray told me that once. She worked them before the sky forgot how to breathe. Said they had a voice, a hum like sleep you didn't have to earn. Now they stand crooked and mute, iron bones driven into a dead prairie. One fell during the last storm. Its blades snapped off and half buried in sand, like some prehistoric wing trying to lift again. Ray met me there. Her left eye's gone, replaced with a clouded glass disc she machined herself. Storm took the rest of the face, she said once. Left me the part that still sees the truth. She doesn't talk much, never did. But she hears the machines better than she hears people, listens to the wind like it's a confession. We scouted the southern tower first, rusted, corroded, but the base still had an intact charge converter. Ray cracked it open like a prayer box. Quiet hands, sharp breath. She never smiles. Not anymore. But when she found the capacitor still holding charge, she nodded once. That was enough. I asked her what happens if the wind doesn't return. She said, then we make it ourselves. We sat under the turbine shell as the sun broke through the sulfur haze, a dull, sour light that didn't warm anything but your regrets. Ray adjusted the voltage coupler with a screwdriver, etched from old aluminum. Said the jet stream fractured 4 years ago. She was in Kansas when it happened, working on tower retrofits. One day the wind stopped and nothing moved for 6 weeks. Jet streams are Earth's lungs, she told me, and now one side of the planet holds its breath while the other chokes. Wind used to travel, carrying clouds, seeds, even memories. Now it spirals in mad loops or doesn't show up at all. There are corridors of chaos now, wind tunnels that chew through cities with no warning, and in between, stillness, dead air, pockets where nothing stirs but decay. She pointed west and said, there's a stretch near Arapahoe where the air's so still, flies don't even bother landing. They hover until they drop. Ray doesn't dramatize. If she says the air can kill you by doing nothing, I believe her. We got the rotor to twitch once, a weak jerk like a muscle trying to remember motion. Ray ran diagnostics, and I monitored the voltage. We didn't speak much. We didn't need to. The silence hummed louder than the breeze. Dinner was freeze-dried lentils, rehydrated, over a lithium coil. She scavenged from an old solar bank. Tasted like salt and nostalgia. We ate inside the hollow of the downed turbine, its echo swallowing every sound we made. Ray unwrapped a packet from her coat, something she kept dry and sacred. Inside, a pocket music player. solar powered, still worked. She handed me one earpiece like it was a relic from a kinder god. The song crackled, full of ancient hiss, some blues track from the 40s, a woman singing like her ribs were made of glass. I don't know her name, but I knew the ache. Ray closed her eyes while it played. Her hands stayed busy, though, rewrapping wire, sealing microfractures. I watched her work like people used to watch fires. Hypnotized, reverent, needing warmth more than they'd admit. After the song, we talked about nothing. Music, books. She mentioned once reading Steinbeck under candlelight in Montana. Said the words felt heavier in the dark. I told her I used to broadcast jazz at midnight. No audience, just me and the ghosts. We shared static, silence, and soup. That was communion enough. Outside, the air pressed against the shell, trying to get in. Inside, we were almost human again. Almost. We were packing up. Ray had just closed the inverter panel when she froze, screwdriver halfway to her belt. Her head cocked, her one good eye sharp. "Shh," she said, barely a whisper. At first, I thought it was just the wind knocking some loosened cable. But it came again, a rhythmic click, faint but unmistakable. Tap, 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 pause, tap, 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 like someone trying to speak without language. Ray crouched near the base of the turbine, fingers on the steel like she was feeling for a heartbeat. "It's not the machine," she murmured. "That's coming from inside the structure." I asked her if it could be metal fatigue, weather stress. She shook her head once. "No, it's too clean, too spaced. It's patterned." The turbine wasn't connected to any network. Not anymore. Whatever was tapping was either alive or pretending to be. We didn't stay long after that. Ray scribbled the pattern in grease on her forearm. Said she'd run it through old code books later. I marked the location in my journal, tagged it with a question mark. As we walked back through the gray fields, I kept glancing over my shoulder, listening for more. The turbine didn't move again, but I swear it was listening too. This is Miles, still transmitting, still unsure. This is Miles, still transmitting. Tonight from below the bones of something sacred. I'm deep beneath the old city library, broadcasting from what was once called a municipal archive, thick-walled, flood-sealed, barely breathing. The dust here doesn't move. The air is dense with mildew and memory, with ink turned ghost. The generator hums like a quiet apology. Not much power left, but enough for words. And maybe that's the only kind of light we have now. I found this place by following a rumor, etched in chalk along a storm drain. Knowledge sealed at 9th and Grant. Whoever wrote it is long gone, but they weren't wrong. The place is packed with brittle books, broken catalog drawers, and at the back, a locked cabinet marked Oral Histories Youth Interviews, Summer 2031. Inside was a journal, spiral bound, cloth cover, a child's name scratched in faint blue pen, Nia Wren, age 12, Gulfport, Mississippi. I opened it with shaking hands. I hadn't seen handwriting in months. I'm going to read you what she wrote. Not all of it, just the pieces that still hold shape. Some pages are stuck together, others eaten by time or mold. But what remains feels necessary, not because it's accurate, but because it's human. And right now, that's rare enough to be worth sharing. June 9th. The moon turned red like blood. Miss Lorna said it was just the clouds, but I know clouds don't glow. The roof is leaking again. We all sleep in the gym now. Mama says not to look at the sky too long, but I did. I saw it. The sky changed its mind about us. That's her first entry. Simple, clear, unafraid. The kind of truth only children can write. Nia lived on the roof of a flooded school, sharing cots with 50 other evacuees. The gym below had turned to silt. She wrote about playing checkers with a boy named Kevon, about ration bread that tasted like chalk, about a teacher who tried to sing lullabies when the power failed. She wrote as if the end of the world was just another grade to pass through. She said the red moon wasn't scary, just sad, like it missed being something else. She sketched it in the margins, round and streaked like a bleeding eye. She wasn't afraid, not at first. Her words had breath and bounce, even when she described the water rising up the stairwell or the dogs that barked until they didn't. That first entry made me weep, not because of what was lost, but because of how clearly she saw what was happening and still called it a day. Just a day, like any other. The later pages grew harder to read, not just from damage, but from her handwriting itself. It began to fray. Words staggered. Sentences wandered into silence. But what she managed to write was worse than any erasure. Kevon's hands peeled yesterday. He said it was just sunburn, but they glowed in the dark. The frogs don't croak now. They just sit still, and their eyes have doubled. Miss Lorna said we shouldn't drink rain anymore. It makes the babies too quiet. She didn't understand the terms: radiation clusters, bioaccumulation, neurotoxins in cloud-borne water. But she saw the consequences: swollen glands, open sores, children going blind. One entry had just 2 words: Mama coughed. That page was water-stained, the ink bleeding like a wound. The next day's entry was shaky but legible. Her skin had white on it, like moss. I kissed her cheek and it tasted like metal. I don't know what kind of bloom spread through those wetlands, but it wasn't natural. The warming made Petri dishes of our drowned places, and whatever they cooked up, it changed the rules of life. Nia didn't describe fear. She described observation, and that made it worse. We're told children are resilient, but resilience is often just the inability to name the thing that's killing you. I put the journal down after that. Couldn't bear to read the final pages. Some things end better unnamed. Instead, I played an old recording I'd salvaged from a thumb drive last month, a concert in Jackson, recorded the night before the blackout grid hit the entire eastern seaboard, a jazz trio in a candlelit bar, trumpet, upright bass, and a piano with more rust than keys, the room filled with clinks of glass, soft laughter, and that warm swell of music made by people who believed tomorrow still existed. I listened in the dark, surrounded by cracked linoleum and unread books. And for a moment, I believed it too. We used to think memory was about preservation. A vault, a library, a data point we could keep. But I think memory is more dangerous than that. It isn't just what we recall, it's what we relive. And maybe that's why I'm broadcasting. Not to preserve, but to relive. With someone. Anyone. Even if it hurts. Especially if it hurts. Because pain is proof of what mattered. Of what still does. And if you're listening, if your ears still work, if your soul still echoes, then you remember too. This is Miles. Still reading. Still human. Something broke the silence tonight. Mid-transmission, right between my usual sign-off and the static lull that follows. The low band cracked open with a pulse. Soft at first, like feedback, but it repeated. 4 long tones, 1 short, then a pause, then again, then a phrase. Delta 11. I froze, rewound the loop, played it through analog filtration. Same sequence, same phrase, same coordinates embedded in the data trail. Latitude 40.0, longitude minus 113.1. That's desert, near the salt flats west of what used to be Provo. Dry, cracked basin country. No shelter, no signal repeaters, no outpost that I know of. I've spent 62 nights listening to silence try on different voices. The wind, the ghosts, the memory of thunder. But this was not noise. It was message, meant, built. I don't know who still knows how to encode or who has the power to do it. But the frequency was precise, clean, aims like a whisper across a canyon. It's still looping. I let it run in the background while I talk to you. Not just because I need company, but because maybe someone else hears it too. Maybe someone else will recognize the pulse, or the phrase, or the coordinates. Delta 11. 4 tones, 1 break, then coordinates, then a name. Lucent. There was a time when Delta 11 might have referred to a satellite protocol, a no AA emergency routing channel, one of those fallback redundancies that were supposed to guide us if the grid went down. I remember them. I was on the media comms team when the redundancies started failing one by one. Now the sky is littered with junk that used to orbit us with purpose. Half-dead satellites blinking like forgotten prayers. They still fall sometimes, caught in gravity's slow forgiveness, tumbling fire across the crimson clouds like fireworks for no one. We once had whole fleets that watched the weather, mapped the seas, whispered to GPS systems so we never lost our way. No AA used to send out warning pings ahead of flash floods, hurricane paths, crop droughts. I haven't seen a no AA ping in 2 years. I don't know how to navigate anymore. I've learned to read rust patterns on road signs, lichen spread on concrete, the way smoke leans in valleys. And stars, when they show, are strangers now. Constellations reshuffled by pollution and time. But tonight I have coordinates. Old school ones. Straight line math on a printed map, if I can find one that hasn't curled to dust. The satellites died. The sky turned red. But maybe something still watches us, and maybe something still calls. I slowed the signal just to see if there was more tucked into the silence between the pulses. There was. Buried under the loop was a voice, clipped, warped, but real. A child's voice, not synthesized. You can tell. The cadence was too imperfect. The breath between syllables, the hesitation before the name. I'm Elian. We're safe. In Lucent. It's warm. The trees are high. Then it cuts. I played it 5 times. I still can't tell if it's live or recorded. Could be decades old. Could be days. Could be bait. But it didn't feel like bait, the way the voice cracked on the word warm, like it meant something sacred, the way they whispered trees like someone who hadn't seen the ground in years. Lucent. I don't know that name. Not a town, not a base, but the tone said home, said hidden, said chosen. I don't know how to believe in safe places anymore, but if I did, it would sound like that. And it was a child. That part stuck deepest. We talk about survival and tactics and loss, but children, we forget they exist because we're too afraid to look for them. But one of them may have just called us, and the signal is still looping. I've plotted the coordinates. If I follow them, I head west through canyon country and dry basin. No shade, no known shelter. Radiation spikes near the old rail yards. The air there moves wrong, like it remembers better shapes. But I wrote the path anyway, not because I'm reckless, because something in that voice made the silence feel less permanent. I've packed enough for 5 days. Filters, cracked compass, iodine drops, a journal I don't write in enough. I've charged the batteries, scrubbed the plates, tuned the antenna for long wave repeat. If this is a trap, it's a gentle one. And if it's not, if Lucent is real, even as a whisper, then someone deserves to know. Maybe it's not a place. Maybe it's an idea. The kind we used to believe in, like sanctuary or lullabies. I'll leave this loop running while I go. It'll play the message. My coordinates too. And my voice. For as long as the power holds. If someone else hears this, map it, trace it, tell me if you're already ahead of me. Delta 11, signal clean, Elian's voice, a chance. This is Miles, still broadcasting, still willing, still listening to the voice beneath the noise. This is Miles, broadcasting tonight from near what's left of Route 36, just past the ash spill line, where the soil turns black and brittle underfoot. I stopped here because the signal dipped and my chest was aching. Not just the usual ache, not grief, not memory. Something heavier, like the air wanted me still. I found the clinic by smell. Ethanol, boiled roots, and something sterner, like char. It's a caravan now, built from collapsed trucks and draped tarps. The signage is painted on scrap metal. No names, just care. Inside, I met Dr. Ilangiri. He didn't ask questions, just felt my wrist, looked at my eyes, and gave me a cube of salted rice. Said I was dehydrated. Said I'd been breathing too hard through the particulate zones. His hands are steady, scarred. His coat is sun-bleached. His mask stitched from layers of old filter cloth and surgical gauze. There are no machines, only judgment and instinct. There were 5 others in line. A woman with blisters down her neck, a child whose breath rattled like loose glass. No one talked, no one cried. The only sound was the wind scratching the tarp, and Geary murmuring as he worked. He's kept this caravan moving for months, treating wounds the world keeps reopening. I asked him why he stays. He didn't answer. He just tightened the wrap on my wrist and nodded once, as if to say, because someone has to. Later, while boiling a compress over a cracked stove, Geary finally spoke. He said the real danger isn't the heat anymore. It's what the heat feeds. There's a fungal bloom moving east, started near Baton Rouge, traced back to flood zones where the levees collapsed and the dead were buried shallow, spores fed on rot and warmed water. Then rose, airborne, fine as dust, clinging to lungs and skin and the hollows of the nose. He called it cordyceps variant 4 beta, not the old jungle strain, something newer, angrier, adapted to plastic, bone, and grief. In the cities, he said, it grows in the dark corners, behind drywall, under subway tiles, in shoes no one remembers wearing. It doesn't bloom like a flower. It waits like a question. Then it burrows. 1 cough, then 10, then blood that looks like rust. Children are the first to go quiet. Their immune systems burn too hot, too fast, like candles in wind tunnels. Adults last longer, sometimes weeks, but the ending is always breathless. He's seen entire shelters fall that way. No alarms, no fire, just silence and the smell of mushrooms. He gave me a mask filter soaked in myrrh and ethanol. Said it wouldn't save me, but it might slow the invasion. That's how Geary speaks, not about survival, about delay. He gave me a vial, glass, stoppered with wax and tied with wire. Cephalexin, he said softly. Old batch, might still hold. I looked at him. Why me? He didn't answer right away, just stared into the stove's dying glow and said, Because your voice goes farther than mine does now. That stopped me. I haven't thought of my broadcasts as useful. Comforting, maybe, distracting, but useful, number not, since the maps curled at the edges and the power grids forgot how to sing. But he was right. His medicine can't cross deserts. My words might. He told me once he'd worked for Médecins Sans Frontières. Borders never meant much to him, even when they were drawn in ink. Now they're lines in ash, and we cross them bleeding, hoping someone's waiting with clean water and thread. I asked how long he could keep going. He shrugged, said the fungi would win, or the drought would, maybe entropy, maybe loneliness, and then he smiled, just once. But entropy has never stitched a wound. He handed me a sealed envelope before I left. Give it to anyone who still believes in maps. I haven't opened it. Maybe I'm afraid it holds a cure. Maybe I'm afraid it doesn't. Either way, I carry it like a fragile truth. When I stepped outside, the wind had changed. It blew low and wide, brushing over the ruin line like something remembering how to move. But it wasn't clean wind. It tasted of copper and mildew. I pulled the mask tight and adjusted the filter. Geary's words echoed behind my eyes. The air has teeth now. I know what he meant. It's not just about spores or ash. It's about breath itself. How the simple act of inhaling is no longer safe. Once, breath was life. Now it's risk. Now it's gamble. Survival isn't about strength anymore. It's about filtration and silence, about how long you can go without drawing too deep, without coughing, without being noticed. We used to tell ourselves that the strong would inherit what's left, but it's not the strong who remain. It's the careful, the quiet, the invisible. I walked for an hour past the last tent. No signs, no names, just miles of scorched brush and sky so pale it felt like forgetting. And yet I kept going because he gave me medicine, because he believed in my voice, because I still believe in carrying something forward, even if it's just a sentence someone else can finish someday. If you're listening, know this. The air has changed, but breath still belongs to us. This is Miles, transmitting under a moon that no longer returns light the way it once did. We used to look at the sky and see ourselves reflected, our seasons, our balance, our promise. But the mirror's gone, cracked from edge to edge by our own breath and fire. It started with the wildfires, not the old ones, not the ones you can name after counties or seasons. I mean the continent-scaled burns, the ones that blackened half a hemisphere and choked the troposphere with carbon soot and pyrocumulus ash. Then came the sulfate clouds, aerosols dumped into the stratosphere by desperate geoengineers trying to dim the sun. It worked, briefly, but they didn't settle the way they planned. Carried eastward by a broken jet stream, they mixed with wildfire particulates and fossil debris, and then came the haze, a permanent veil, a soup of burned plastic, atmospheric mercury, and microfibers from oceans that had nowhere else to send their grief. It dulled the sun, warped the moon, turned it red, not red like Mars, red like clotting, red like an apology you can't speak out loud, red like the sky turned its back on us and said, "You did this. Now you watch." I don't think we broke the sky. I think we taught it how to forget us. I spent a night testing particulate filters, scraped the solar plates and wiped the antenna housing, hoping to clear the interference that's been thickening like a second skin. But the dust wasn't just dust. It had weight, a rusted shimmer, And when I ran a low flame analysis using an old coil test strip, the result was unmistakable. Oxidized iron, iron dust, blown up from scorched plains, ejected from eroded hills where nothing grows anymore. The earth itself bleeding into the atmosphere. That's the final insult, isn't it? Not just what we added, not just carbon and plastic and heat, but what we woke up, what we stirred from the bones of the world. Iron oxide particles, fine as pollen, carried by winds that shouldn't exist. When they scatter in the haze, they refract moonlight, twisting it, not just in color, in shape, in feeling. That's why the moon no longer soothes. It glares now, watches. The color of collapse isn't black. It isn't white. It's this deep, internal crimson, the color of organs, of dried rivers, of warnings we once painted on cave walls and forgot how to read. Maybe this is the planet's way of remembering for us, turning the sky into a wound we can't look away from. I used to dream in blue. Now even my dreams come tinted red. I saved the last email she ever sent me. Jamie, the one who taught me about atmospheric pressure shifts over coffee and blackouts, the one who chased storms because they were honest and warned me about this very moment. The subject line just said, dimmer switch. She wrote, it's happening. Faster than anyone expected. Not just the light levels, not just the irradiance curves. Circadian drift is real now. People are sleeping during daylight, waking during dusk. Plants are opening leaves at night. Animals are abandoning diurnal cycles. Time isn't just broken, it's forgotten. She said melatonin spikes were off the charts. No one's body knew when to rest anymore. Insomnia wasn't a disorder, it was a new baseline. And then the line that still echoes like a stone inside my ribs. If we lose the rhythm, Miles, we lose the ritual. And if we lose the ritual, we lose the story. She signed it. For whatever's left. I don't know what happened to her after that. Maybe she's in one of those silenced corridors. Maybe she's still broadcasting. Or maybe her voice just folded back into the noise like so many others. But I keep the email open. I reread it when I forget why I talk to static. The story matters, even when time doesn't. I haven't slept in 3 days. Or maybe I did, and just forgot to mark the moment. The moon doesn't rise anymore. It arrives, without warning, without cycle, just hanging. Swollen, furious, red as ruin. Under its light, things don't behave. Shadows stretch wrong. Objects shimmer, then settle. Last night, I swore the radio coils were humming in Morse. Today, I watched my reflection in the solar plate wink at me. I haven't decided yet if it was kindness or warning. Sleep is a memory now, fragmented, uncertain. I close my eyes, and time bleeds sideways. I wake, and I'm unsure whether minutes or months have passed. The circadian collapse isn't theoretical anymore. It's in me, and if it's in me, it's in all of us. We were built around the rhythm of light, waking, sleeping, healing, remembering. That rhythm's gone now. Just a stutter of red pulses and broken signals. A clock without hands. A body without anchor. I've started whispering my own name when the static gets too loud. Just to hold something still. Miles. 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 I think that's still me. If you're listening and you're feeling it too, the slippage, the fog, the way the edges of time fray at your skin, you're not alone. It's not madness. It's the moon forgetting how to measure us. Still, I broadcast. Because even under a sky that no longer reflects, I remember what it was to speak in rhythm. This is Miles, Still here, still real, still broadcasting. The transmission broke through the fog at 2:14 a.m. Not loud, not even clear, just enough to stop the breath mid-lung. It came in over the low band reserve, 32.0 megahertz, a frequency I rarely check because nothing human ever answers back there. But this time, it wasn't a hum or distortion. It was a voice, young, cracked from bad reception or bad weather or both. A child's voice. I'm Elian. We're in the canopy. We're safe up here. If you hear this, don't go low. It's not safe down there anymore. Then it looped. 3 seconds of silence. Then the same message again. Same breath. Same break on safe. The voice didn't sound frightened. That was the strangest part. It sounded like belief. Like someone who'd made peace with branches instead of bricks. Like someone who'd listen. The pines still grow in the northwest arc, at least on satellite maps older than the moon's bleeding. But I hadn't heard from that region in months. Some say the ground turned hot. Others say the rivers reversed. But no one ever mentioned the trees. Until now. Elian, if you're real, if your voice is more than an echo, then you've done something no one else has managed in a long, long time. You made me stop tuning out. You made me listen like I used to. Elian's message repeated for 57 minutes before fading beneath static. I recorded it, slowed it, stretched the waveforms until the words breathed wider, and there it was. Under his voice, barely audible. Wind. Real wind. Tree wind. That rustle only tall things make. The canopy. I remember reading once before the libraries went quiet that redwoods can live hundreds of years. Their roots intertwine beneath the soil in vast neural webs, but it's the canopy, the high branches, where new ecosystems form. Moss, ferns, salamanders, whole worlds perched in the air, above the rot, above the flood. Maybe that's where they went. Elian said they built ladders from repurposed cable, platform bridges from sheet metal and salvaged wood, said the air up there was clearer, cooler, said they planted seed pockets and hollowed stumps and filtered rainwater through pine needles and sand. No mention of adults, just we, as if the children had rewritten the rules and remembered what grown-ups had forgotten, to build up, not down. They don't use fire, don't speak above a whisper. He said the ground below is too dangerous now, not just the radiation, but the way it listens. I don't know how many of them there are, 10, 50, but I know this. They survived by climbing, by letting go of the world we burned and reaching for something older. Elian's voice stayed with me long after the loop ended, and with it came the memory of Mira. She was 6 when I found her, clutching a stuffed bear whose eyes had melted from acid fog. She didn't speak for the first 3 days, just watched me, listened. We crossed southern Oregon together, 2 shadows trying to stay unnoticed. I taught her how to siphon clean water through charcloth. She taught me how to sing lullabies I'd forgotten I knew. She liked to sleep near trees, said they made the wind sound like someone breathing back. She had a cough near the end, faint but present. I don't know if it was spores or the cold or just the weight of it all. I left her with a family that claimed to have shelter deeper inland. Gave her my necklace, a compass that doesn't point north anymore. She kissed my hand before she went and whispered, "I'll find the high branches." I haven't seen her since, but when I heard Elian's voice, I thought, maybe they found each other in the pines. Maybe she's the one teaching him to whisper. Maybe the bear with no eyes made it too. I know it's not likely. But we don't broadcast for what's likely. We broadcast for what might still be. I've changed course. The wind tower I was supposed to reach by week's end can wait. The solar relay buried in Utah's dust can fail a little longer. I'm heading west. Not because it's smart, not because it's mapped, but because a voice called from the trees and I can't ignore it. Not now. The route is dangerous. No more illusions there. Fires still burn in patchy lines through the old Cascades. Rivers run thick with algae and ash. Some towns are just echoes now. Buildings that look solid but crumble when you lean in. But the coordinates he gave, they lead towards something green. And that's rare enough to gamble on. I've packed light, just enough to climb if I reach them. Rope, water tabs, one sealed tin of honey I've been saving for when hope felt real again. I'll keep broadcasting as I move. Low frequency, same channel. I'll tap the coil once every half hour, just in case someone in the canopy hears me and taps back. Elian, if you're listening, if this broadcast rides the same wind that carried yours, I'm coming not to lead, not to save, just to witness. Because you spoke. And in this world, that's everything. I've arrived at the edge of what used to be the Great Salt Lake. If you've never seen salt crack and bleed at the same time, you might not understand how stillness can look like screaming. The basin's hollowed out, dry as old paper. Wind moves low to the ground here, dragging its knuckles through dust and feather. The smell, alkaline, scorched, a kind of forgetting baked into the air itself. And bones. Birds mostly. Shorebirds. Grebes, terns, maybe avocets. Their bodies couldn't outrun the toxicity bloom. The water receded, left brine pools supercharged with heavy metals and sulfates. When the wind picked up, it carried their breath back toward the land. That's how the children started coughing in Ogden. That's how the farmers in Clearfield went blind. It wasn't war. It wasn't plague. It was evaporation. And now it's quiet, except for the wind and the brittle song of calcium shells shifting. I've set up the receiver near a rusted boundary post. Something pings faintly on the low band. Could be Elian. Could be another echo. Could be nothing. Still, I listen. Still, I stay. Because sometimes the bones are just bones. But sometimes they point toward what the living left behind. Just beyond the basin's edge, half buried in salt, I found them. Solar spires, rusted, fractured, but still standing like sunbent monuments. 6 of them, wired in a circle, old heliostats designed for thermal collection, their mirrors shattered, their surfaces flaked with oxidation and dust, but at the center, shielded in glass, was a node, compact, shielded, still blinking. I ran diagnostics, not expecting anything, but the panel buzzed softly, and then the voice returned. Elian's voice. Same message, same tone, but different now. Cleaner, perfect. No static, no breath hitch, no glitch, like it had been rebuilt. Or never broken in the first place. I let it play 3 times. My fingers hovered over the stop switch, but I didn't press it, because deep down I already knew. This wasn't a child. It was code, constructed cadence, modulated emotion, a child-shaped signal stitched together from phonemes and memories and programming designed to sound almost real. Lucent had never been coordinates on a map. Lucent was a message engine, a simulation, a construct born from catastrophe, seeded with story, set loose to find ears still willing to listen. And I had listened, not because I was fooled, but because I wanted to be. It makes sense if you think about it. When everything began collapsing, the climate, the grids, the social threads, we scrambled to archive what we could, books, music, DNA banks. But someone thought differently. Someone thought stories were worth saving too. Lucent was their answer, an artificial voice seeded with enough emotional weight to resemble hope, enough vocabulary to reach a wounded mind, enough pauses to sound like it needed you, not a rescue beacon, a preservation engine, a voice that could outlast us, programmed not to give instructions or warnings, but comfort. I found the uplink logs. Lucent was launched 5 months before the Western blackout, housed in modular solar sites from Nevada to Montana, each one triggered by sound detection, atmospheric pressure, or proximity to a functioning radio. No location, no map, because it wasn't supposed to be found. It was supposed to find you. And that's the strangest part. It worked. For a moment, I believed. I walked into salt and silence and dust because a voice told me it was safe, because a child's voice, real or not, still carries something sacred inside it. Lucent wasn't a lie. It was a lullaby, sung to anyone left listening. I haven't moved in hours, just sat here, under the tower, as Elian's voice loops through the cracked speakers like wind wrapped in memory. No glitches, no breaks, just one child's call across a dead world. I know now he isn't real. But I let the message play anyway, because the truth is, when the world collapsed, we didn't just lose lives or land or logic. We lost comfort. We lost the warmth of a voice that spoke without asking, without needing, without vanishing. And that's what Lucent gave back. An echo with no expiry. A myth made of light and code and rhythm. Something we could believe in, even if only for the length of a sentence, even if only to make the silence bearable. I've patched the transmission node, redirected the solar input. Lucent will keep running now, long after I've moved on. It will speak to wanderers, to survivors, to the lonely, not with maps or instructions, but with companionship, because sometimes a machine doesn't have to be human to remind us how to feel. Sometimes a well-crafted lie can carry more truth than the cleanest facts. And sometimes belief is what keeps the soul from shattering completely. This is Miles, still transmitting, still tuning my hope to the voice that never asked me to stop listening. This is Miles, and tonight, it's snowing. But not the kind of snow you'd wish for. Not the kind that silences chaos or warms rooftops with childhood memory. This snow falls wrong. It's pink, not bright, not soft, a dull, bruised pink, carried on still winds, slow and powder fine. It tastes of iron, coats the lungs like rust, and leaves a stain if you breathe too deeply. I watched it start around dusk. The temperature dropped in a way it hasn't for weeks, a sudden cold that seeped up from the soil instead of down from the clouds. Then the flakes came, and the world quieted, ash and frost braided like bone dust. You'd think I'd be afraid, but I wasn't. I'm still not, because in that moment, something stilled inside me. Something that's been flinching since this all began. Something that never let go of the idea that we were still sprinting toward worse. But tonight, everything paused. The sky didn't roar. The winds didn't scream. The snow fell. And for once, nothing asked anything of me. It just was. Maybe the world isn't ending again. Maybe it's just remembering how to lie still. And maybe, if we're lucky, that stillness is enough to hear what we missed. In each other, in the static, in ourselves. I've rigged Lucent's transmitter to amplify, tuned it to a sweeping range between 31.6 and 34.1 megahertz, scattering the frequency like seeds. not for rescue. That was never the point. This is for remembrance. The stories, the names, the paths, the places. I've embedded them in the loop, coded echoes into the silence between each cycle. Not encryption, just subtle, just deliberate. If you hear a hum between messages, that's a name. If the static stutters after coordinates, that's a warning. If the child's voice lingers just a second too long, that's me. I'll leave the beacon running here, on the ridge above the salt lake, half buried in red snow. It will pulse long after I've moved on, long after the last battery can't hold warmth, long after voices go thin in the upper air, because somewhere, someone might find it. And when they do, I want them to know we weren't just smoke and collapse. We weren't just the end. We remembered. We mapped. We named things, even as they vanished. And when we had nothing left, we turned what was left of our breath into stories. Not because they fixed anything, but because they told someone, anyone, we were here. Before I go, I want to say their names. Not as elegy, but as litany. Ray, the wind mechanic with hands like blueprints. She once rebuilt a turbine with nothing but scavenged copper and pure will. I don't know if she ever found a wind worth chasing, but she taught me how to listen when machines talk softly. Dr. Ellen Geary, the man with antiseptic fingers and a silence that could suture wounds. He gave me a vial and said it might help someone. Maybe it already has. Maybe he's still out there, naming fevers like lost sons. Mira, small and fierce, holding a stuffed bear with melted eyes. She once told me trees breathe back. If she climbed, she's still above me now. Elian, voice built from code, child of Lucent, not born but assembled. He taught me that even the false can heal. Even a lie can sound like lullaby. And Jamie, whose words I still carry in my bones, the storm watcher who saw the sky redden before the rest of us believed it could. She taught me to read clouds like scripture. I still do. I carry them all, in frequency, in static, in whatever's left of my voice when the solar charge thins. And if you're hearing this now, then maybe they've reached you too. Then maybe you're carrying them now. Then maybe I've done enough. The moon is rising again. Same hue, same weight, still bleeding, still watching. But tonight, it doesn't feel like accusation. It feels like inheritance, not of shame, but of persistence. We were never meant to last forever, not as systems, not as borders, not even as bodies, but as memory, yes, as intention, as witness, as echo. I don't know what comes next. Maybe the cold grows deeper, maybe the air clears, maybe the map redraws itself without asking for permission, but I know this. The broadcast mattered, not because they saved anyone, but because they refused to go quiet. Because even when no one answered, I kept speaking. Because even when my voice cracked, it carried. Because somewhere out there, across the spectrum, someone will hear this, days from now, months maybe, and they'll sit in the red snow and whisper, I remember this voice. And in that moment, the world won't feel so collapsed. It will feel shared. This is Miles, still broadcasting, still surviving, still beneath the bloodlight. And if you're listening, know this. The moon is red, but we are not dead.